Well, welcome back to another episode of Can You Believe That? And with me is my co-host, my good friend, the Car Wizard. How you doing, Wizard?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Tommy?
Always amazing when we're here together talking about cool, wacky, weird things. But we got kind of a serious topic today, right? We're talking about something that is maybe the side of God or Jesus that most people shun away from, right?
Yeah, it's something that preachers don't want to talk about. You know, in previous videos, we talked about in hauntings investigations where there was demonic entities, and we know of that one guy on TV in a tight black shirt that likes to push the demon's buttons, Come and show me your power. We've always advised with these entities, never go pushing their buttons. Yeah. It never ends up well for you. And that's kind of what I'm going to get at today is the book of Revelation, basically the end of the world. When I was a kid, they would preach about this stuff. They don't anymore. Maybe because it's too graphic or too offensive, and it kind of is. So it's kind of a warning for you guys through this video. It's kind of controversial. We're not doing this in a way that we're pushing anything on anyone. I'm just presenting a story, and I'd like to know what you guys think about it. Something that I read in the Bible. Just like we just mentioned, you don't want to push buttons of demons. What do you think, Tommy? You probably don't want to push the buttons of the most powerful entity in all existence.
No, I would think that's a terrible idea. I mean, it's one thing to ask a demon to give you a hug. It's another thing to talk to God like, what are you doing? Because we're going to find out what God's doing in the book of Revelations.
All my years as a kid and even growing up and through church, they talked about love God, God loves you. But the preachers would always say you should also fear God. And I never understood that until one day I was reading through Revelation many years ago. And I got to the story I'm going to share with you today. And even from me coming from a religious background, I was shocked. I was like, what? Ooh, God does that? So here we go, guys. We're going to dive into it. I got a lot of verses and things I'm going to go over. And again, you can read the whole book of Revelation, not so much to try and convert you or anything, but just if you want to see what it says for yourself. Say, is the Car Wizard right? Is that really what it says? And you can go see for yourself. And I'll share where I get this information from. My story that I get out of the Bible starts after the aforementioned this supposed rapture. Even people are talking about it now, Tommy. They're saying it's supposed to happen tomorrow.
Well, I guess yesterday. Yesterday was the rapture.
And I want to clear that up before we dive into my story.
Okay.
Christ said himself, no one, including himself, knows the day or the hour. Only the Father in heaven knows when the rapture will happen. So anyone that says they had a vision or they had this or someone I know now when the rapture's happening, they're actually basically stepping on Jesus's toes.
Well, maybe they just had ayahuasca and had a really bad trip.
They're slapping Jesus in the face and saying, oh yeah, well, I know it. Maybe you don't, but I do. No, that's not the way it works.
Feel like that's not going to end well for people.
No, but when this does happen, I don't know when that's going to be, but when this supposedly does happen, the Christian people of earth, again, this is a Bible-based story. I'm not saying this is concrete or what you should believe. I'm just giving the story of the Bible. When the rapture happens, the Christian people on earth that are still alive in bodies and meat suits are all taken up. They're gone. The only people left on earth where God, even in his own perfect judgment, only he could make this judgment, knows that everyone else on earth is not going to be, probably not going to be converting. They're the people that have turned their back on God, supposedly, and said, I don't believe in it. They basically gave God, the double birds.
Yeah.
Again,
bad idea.
I don't believe that stuff. It's a child story. It's fantasy. It's Easter Bunny. Blah. That's the people that are left over on earth. So I'm going to start pulling up the scripture. It starts talking about, again, keep in mind, the Christian people on earth are gone. This rapture event has happened. Everyone on earth now knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, this Easter Bunny God guy is real.
It's not just we heathens will be left here.
Yeah, I don't know, Tommy. I hope not. But
I'll wave on my way as you go up. I'll wave at you. I mean, I'm not a bad person, but I've got my beliefs. You have yours. But again, we respect each other. We love each other as friends.
Yeah.
And we can have these conversations without being mean.
And again, this is my viewpoint. I'm just sharing a story with you guys. But God starts to kind of test people, starts to do some things. I'm going to pull some. This is out of Revelation, and it lists. I'm not going to read the whole book to you guys. I'll be here for an hour and a half or 2 hours. So I am picking and choosing some verses, and it's not because I don't want to show anything else that's going on. It just takes too long. All of Revelation is kind of a vision or something that happened to John. I think it was on the island of Patmos is when he wrote this book of Revelation. In this vision, he saw angels were pouring out what's called bowls or vials of different things that are supposed to start happening to humanity. And in verse 3 in chapter 16, it says, a second angel poured out his vial upon the sea. It became blood. Every living soul died in the sea. And in verse 4, it says, and a third angel poured out a vial and upon the rivers and fountains of waters, and they became blood. God's letting people know, you now know I'm real. I'm showing you for sure I'm real. This isn't a joke. I control things. When I say something happens, it happens.
Wizard, why can't they just turn the water into wine? Why has it got to be blood? That does not sound appetizing.
I have no idea. Again, these are things that are supposedly supposed to happen, and it's outside of my realm of understanding. But here's the thing about people. What happens to any human on earth if you prove them wrong so fiercely and so strongly that there is no recourse, irrefutable? How do some people react to that, Tommy?
Well, there's a multitude of ways that can happen. Some people will shut down because it's just beyond their comprehension and it defies everything they believed before. Some people may do the groveling thing, which I would probably be included in that group where I grovel and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I kind of had an idea, knew you were there. This is nice to see you. Any chance I can get on that escalator now? Damn it. There's going to be probably folks that do that. And then there might be other people that just are just angry. And angry that they missed the boat or angry that they didn't believe. But I think there's a lot of ways people could react to this.
The Bible does say in the end, even after the Christians are gone, there is going to be some instances where some can find, like you said, grovel, that they can finally admit, you know, I was wrong. And if they stay the course until the end, I think that they do find a way into heaven. And that's kind of why I think God is testing people. He's trying to finally get those last few that might finally accept who he is. You mentioned 3 different ways that people could react. And it's my belief that most are probably going to react with rage and just start shaking their fists. And this next verse kind of corroborates with that.
Okay.
This is chapter 16, verse 9. It says, the men were scorched with great heat, and then they blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues. And they repented not, even unto his glory. Even these things are happening, they're like, I don't care. They're saying shouting obscenities at God at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of to give them a little credit. If you're on fire from the sun, there's a lot of things that are going to come out of your mouth that you may not necessarily mean.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to hurt something fierce.
So these people already didn't believe in God. Now they kind of think, okay, this thing must be real. And God's doing more things, saying, look, I'm real. Don't you get it now? And these people, it says here, a lot of people, most people are going to still shake their fist in anger. And then chapter 11, it says, and they blaspheme the God of heaven because their pains and sores, and still they won't repent. There's a chance it's like, okay, I get it. You know, I'm in pain. I give up. You're real. You know, this is the point where you talked about maybe people could grovel and say, I get it.
I would sure as hell be sure as hell. Probably shouldn't say that, but I would sure be apologizing. But it's didn't we talk about, was it the story of Job where it was like God's favored and then the devil said, let me test him?
Yeah.
And like all this plight took place and, you know, boils, sores, dead kids. And right as they were about to give up, an angel's like, hey, don't give up. You're almost there, but don't you dare blaspheme God because that will be really bad for you. And right. Sorry, God. Sorry, this is really hard, though. Can we fix this? And then God says finally, okay, yeah, you have new children. You've got twice the wealth. And here you go. And the devil's like, well, darn, that didn't work out. You know, that sounds like a kind of global scale version of that.
It basically kind of is almost the same scenario. Not exactly, but a lot of similarities. But you start to see people on earth, the remainder of people start to change for the worse. It says in chapter 16, verse 13, it says, I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, being probably Satan, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth into the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them together to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. There's like I talked about, rage, and it's going to actually bring the non-believers together. So much so they're going to be like, let's come together. We're already blaspheming this God guy. And verse 16 says, he gathered them together in a place called the Hebrew tongue Armageddon.
That's interesting. I mean, because for people that need to be caught up, I've actually read the book of Revelation several times, so I'm fairly familiar with this. There is a potential false prophet that comes forward with a possible world leader who work kind of as a team to deceive the world.
Right.
That's where like the whole mark of the beast and all this stuff comes from. So that's what it's referring to. The false prophet out of the mouth of the dragon is that this false prophet is essentially an antichrist of sorts, propagating evil or forcing people to turn their backs to God. So just wanted to bring that up for all of you in case you haven't read the book. That's kind of an important inclusion. It's along with breaking of the seals and the trumpets and all these other
vials and stuff. Yeah.
Right. So like that's just to catch you all up to speed, but that was something I thought was interesting that it talks about the beast and the prophet coming, out of the mouth of the beast.
Yeah.
And how it's language and all this false information that's meant to turn people away from God. And then the rage unites them. It's quite an interesting way to build an army of the damned.
Right. Like Tomy gave you some more information. I could go on for an hour or two with all this information. I'm just leading up to the point of where mankind, like you just mentioned, starts pushing God's buttons. And we just talked about at the beginning of this video, it's probably not the best thing to do. This is the most powerful entity in all existence, that the words out of his mouth has the power to control molecules and atoms, everything in the universe.
Don't do it.
He cannot even be defeated by Satan, even not even 1% defeated. So this is the most powerful being in all of existence. And we now arrive to the point where these things have been happening, like you mentioned, and then what Tomy just mentioned, this false prophet unites the world and says, you know what? And this is kind of crude. This is what I'm about to say is crude. Let's just get together and just put nuclear missiles up his ass. Let's destroy this guy. Let's call him down here and absolutely lay waste to him. We don't have to talk about him anymore. He doesn't have to tell us what to do anymore. We can live our life in peace. Let's kill this guy or entity, whatever you want to call it. So this is where the final buttons are pushed, where God says, is that what you want? You got it, buddy.
Bringing a knife to a gunfight. That's a bad idea.
You say, why wouldn't he love all these people? Why would he do this to people? You have to realize God didn't come to the fight and start a fight. It's the nations come to war against God and they say, come down here. Let me show you something. I got something for you. God says, okay. That's when things turn for the worst. It says in Revelation 19, chapter 11, it says, I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True and Righteousness, and he doth judge and make war. Just like he was asked to, okay, I got war coming for you. And it says in verse 12, his eyes are as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he's clothed in a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And in verse 14, it says, and the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean.
Sounds like God's about to get medieval on someone's ass.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. And if you all remember the Old Testament, God was a little testier back then. It sounds like we're getting a taste of that once more.
Here's the crazy thing, Tomy. Whatever humanity is left asked for it. Come down here. Come show us what you got. Just like the guy on
I was going to say, are they wearing black tie
Show
t-shirts?
me your power.
Yeah, they must be wearing black tie t-shirts and running around demonically in infested places. Well, they're going to find out real quick why you don't mess with the big man upstairs.
Right. So now we're going to find out what happens when you ask for that. God delivers. In verse 15, it says, "And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, and with it he could smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron, and he treadeth the winepress of fierceness and wrath of Almighty God." So, what that means, when God does show up, he doesn't have machine guns, he doesn't have laser guns, he doesn't have nuclear weapons. He is so powerful, just the mere words out of his mouth are absolutely devastating. Entire armies will just be folded over into death, just like that. That's how powerful, just his mouth.
That's crazy.
He doesn't even need weapons.
So you don't want to have a conversation with God.
Right. That's why they say you should fear God. But I believe even Satan himself will be shaking in his boots.
I would bet.
He'd be like, oh my God, what have we done?
All of his minions were there calling for this to happen. Not a good call.
You asked for this, you got it.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, y'all.
And some more of a description, it says in verse 16, "He hath on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings, Lord of Lords." He's designating, this is who I am. This is the name that I come in. I believe the devastation has happened at this point with, I spoke with his mouth. There's bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, absolute destruction and death. Like you couldn't imagine. I don't even think a Hollywood movie could depict how destructive this is.
No, actually, the only one that tried, just to interject here, Kevin Smith did Dogma. And in that movie, Alanis Morissette plays God. And at a certain point, God talks. And it's a full Scanners moment where somebody's head just...
And in verse 17, it says, "I saw an angel standing near the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together unto the great supper of the great God." He's asking the birds and the flying creatures of earth to clean up the mess.
Well, the crows will be happy.
In verse 18, it says that you may eat the flesh of kings and the flesh of captains and the flesh of mighty men and the flesh of the horses and of them that sit on the horses and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, small and great. Yeah, so all the people they just listed, all these people are leveled. They're dead right now. And not one single of God's army has been harmed at this point. Not one.
I mean, God didn't even need an army. It really sounds like they're just there for moral support.
Yeah. So that's just the hubris of man. Like Satan himself cannot defeat this army. How does any man think that they could?
Because a false prophet has led them away.
Right.
We'll do a whole episode on the Antichrist eventually, by the way, because I do think there's a lot of other ideas of this term of the Antichrist, and the false prophet may be one, but there's Nostradamus had a whole bunch of talks about it too. And, we'll do an episode diving deep into the Antichrist, but I love this Revelation talk. So what else we got?
It says, after this is all said and done, it says the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought the miracles before him, in which he deceived with the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire.
There you go. More fire. That sounds terrible.
And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth. So there again, it talks about it's a sword, but it's not like a sword you hold. It's a weapon. His mouth is a weapon. He just speaks. And it happens. Whatever he wants, it happens.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And it says, all the fowls were then filled with their stomach. They're filled with their flesh. There's so many bodies that the birds have eaten, and they're full, and there's still more. So anyway, that's the crazy story. The next story I'm going to have for you is after all this happens, and this is going to be a really cool one for you, Tommy. But
okay,
isn't that a crazy story? I read that in my younger years as a Christian, and I was like, I never heard a preacher talk about this stuff. Maybe because it would upset too many people. And again, guys, I'm not pushing religion on anybody. I'm not pushing Christianity. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it. You're free to do as you want on this planet. But I definitely wanted to share this story with you guys because even from my perspective, my upbringing, I was shocked. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like in the Catholic Church growing up when I did, because I was raised Catholic, they did talk about it. A little bit. That hellfire and brimstone talk is kind of big with the Catholics, or at least it was. I'm sure it might have changed at some point, but yeah, it was one of those things that really got your attention because you're like, well, God may be merciful. Really, Jesus is merciful. Old Testament God and Book of Revelations God is meaning business. And if you've made your choice, you've made your choice, and that's the end of it. And so I always thought that was kind of interesting, because it's like, you even bring this up. There's the initial like devastation, and then it's like, okay, are you going to grovel? Are you going to ask? Are you going to believe? Well, maybe you can get a pass that. But if you
Yeah.
just double down and say, well, that you've extended past compassion to stupidity, and
Right.
it's like, well, and again, I personally am not a Christian. I find this fascinating. I do believe in God, but I think it's one of those things where even if I was confronted with all of this horror, you better believe I'd be on my hands and knees begging forgiveness and saying, you know what, everybody was right. I'm sorry. I deserve whatever I get, but please get me out of here.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, there'll be some that would do like you're saying that you would do, but the majority will be stubborn until the bitter end. I know I'm not making that up. That's just the verses I just pulled out of the
No,
Bible.
and it's also just people. Like, that's
It's
what
just
people
people,
do.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you sit in traffic and you get happier the longer you're in traffic.
Yeah, it
People
didn't
get
matter.
angrier. But if I'm watching angels pour vials and it's like that's turning to blood, that's turning to blood, people are dying from pestilence, the sun's exploding. At a certain point, I'm gonna be like, you know what? My bad.
Yeah, but all the craziness aside and all the destruction, there's something really cool that happens after this. And I wonder, Tommy, if this is a spacecraft.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let me get these verses here.
I know we've touched on this in the past, but this is the first time we're reading the verse, so I'm excited.
This is in the 21st chapter of Revelation. In verse 2, it says, I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. It had a wall great and high, 12 gates, and the gates were 12 angels with their names written thereon, 12 tribes of the children of Israel. And on the east, it had 3 gates, the north, 3 gates, the south, 3 gates, and on the west, 3 gates. I don't know if these are windows or portals or.
Yeah, it could be doorways, but it's interesting because I know that we talked in the past, and we'll do an angel episode, but discussions of like the cherubim and things looking like wheels.
Right.
Also, again, reminds me of UFOs, flying saucers, or
Mm-hmm.
floating discs of light. And now you have them, particularly as angels, bringing down this larger area of heaven, essentially, or maybe it is a craft. I mean, that seems like it's pretty hard pressed to tell me that that's not some sort of like large scale UFO.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it calls it a city, but maybe from John's perspective, that's the only thing he can think of to describe what he saw. It's huge. So it gives some more descriptions as I go along here. It says, and the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth, and the measured the city with a reed 12,000 furlongs. The length of breadth and height of it are equal, like a square. I
Wow.
guess it would be like a square. And it says he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of man, that is of the angel. And the building of the wall was like jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass.
Interesting. So, you know what's interesting about this, Wizard?
Well,
I know we just did an episode about the September 2nd UAP hearing in Congress.
mm-hmm.
One of the things that one of the gentlemen who was giving testimony there, they witnessed a cube, a UAP cube
Mm-hmm.
that it was red light essentially. But a lot of them talk about this sort of like plasma cover, or almost like a transparent kind of cover over it too. This sounds really familiar to what you're saying.
It kind of does. And I just have a few more verses and then I'm done, but it gives a description of this object is not really like we would think of a ship that's made out of metal or carbon fiber or something. It's jewels.
Yeah.
It's weird. It says, and the 12 gates were 12 pearls, and several gates of one pearl, and the city was pure gold and transparent glass. And then it says, and the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God did lighten it. So God is now the light for earth. The sun is not even needed anymore.
Crazy.
It's so powerful, so much light. And there's many other verses, but here it mentions some of the jewels, it looks like. It says sardonyx, sardius, chrysolite, topaz, chrysoprasus, jacinth, amethyst.
Wow.
This craft is made out of glass or jewels or something. It's weird.
That's amazing. Yeah, I
It
mean,
is.
and you have like a lot of the New Age movement believe that different stones, gemstones, minerals have different properties, do different things. Various cultures, going all the way back to the Egyptians and even earlier, they all believe that certain minerals and gems have certain properties or connections to the divine. So to me, it would make sense that some of that would be incorporated into the architecture of this stuff. And in fact, going back to the UAP idea, there's talk of how people believe that certain civilizations like the Lumerians or other non-terrestrial, non-human intelligences may have used stones as part of their workings to create their vessels or to store memory or data. And so that's something where, man, this is really riding that close line. And of course, John the Divine wrote this many, many, many centuries ago. So
Yeah.
he's coming up with stuff that people today are still seeing and interacting with and experiencing. I find that fascinating.
Some of the jewels and things, maybe they're used to power the craft, or who knows?
Yeah. Or God just liked how it looked. I don't know. Maybe he was really proud of that creation.
I imagine it would be very beautiful, whatever it is or however it looks. It would just be like, whoa. I don't know the conversion of all the psi cubits and furlongs and all these things, but this thing's probably massive.
Wait, you're a mechanic. You should know all that, right?
No,
I'm the artist. I don't know anything about that. But I mean, we also hear, like you talked about God's light being the light that shines on this thing. We know that all these UAP are generally self-luminescent. So that's also interesting because here again, we're seeing like interesting connective tissue to where it's like, yeah, maybe God didn't start here. He created here, but maybe God didn't start here. And maybe, like you said before in other episodes, for his glory, he created other beings, other types.
Yeah.
And he's taken bits and pieces from all these different worlds that he's created or peoples he's created and made his own thing. It's pretty fascinating.
I think that could be a revelation in itself, is if you end up being with God and you're on this craft, that one of the revelations could be that just blows your mind, even at that point, is God says, this on earth I have done a million other times on other planets.
Yeah.
It's like, what? And then, and here they all are. And it's just people and different entities and crazy.
Yeah. Maybe just a message for God, if you're listening. Maybe before you burn us all to heck with the sun, show the craft first, and then a lot of us, like myself, would just be happy to get in. It's already not easy here. If it's worse, can I get an advance ticket to go up? Like, I will grovel all you want. Just putting that out there, God. All right.
I want to fly on that craft and go see the universe.
Yeah. Show me all the best creations out there. I'm sure there's stuff that we can't even imagine that's out there, and it'd be cool to see.
It would be pretty cool. But I just definitely wanted to get this story out there for you guys to comment on it. And what do you guys think about this? We always think of God as being this happy-go-lucky guy on a cloud, and he's, the angels have wings, and there's hugs and cuddles and compassion. This definitely is not the God that most people talk about. This, in fact, in most churches, they kind of dance around this stuff. They don't really want to get deep into it because people will be like, oh my goodness, really?
Yeah, it's not really cuddling.
No, there's no cuddling going on.
No.
Very much a lot of dying going on. Yeah, a lot of death.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story, and I think no matter what religion you come from, no matter what you believe, whether it be God or the devil or a demon or jinn, you probably shouldn't push any of these entities' buttons, Tommy.
No. I've learned in my work doing paranormal consulting that things beyond our comprehension are best left respected and tread lightly around them.
Can you imagine going in an investigation into it and there's a demonic entity and you're going to get a gun and shoot it?
I mean, there's people that I hate to say this. I've had cases
make war
where people
with this
try
thing.
that.
Yeah.
People try that, and it's like, well, you're obviously, what are you hitting? You're not hitting anything. It's not like our Dogman episode where people were talking about shooting Dogman and they could see the flesh come off. Look, if demonology worked the way that the show Supernatural did, and I could just load salt pellet shotgun shells, man, my job would be so easy. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way.
Today, you will have the honor playing one of the greatest games ever invented. A game with one simple rule. Dodge. Sorry?
What we have to do is we rely on our faith, we rely on our beliefs, we rely on other things beyond us to intervene on our behalf, and we hope that we get it right.
Definitely. And that's definitely in this whole story I talked about when these nations come against God and try to make war. I think it would be like an EMP attack. God would just speak something and all electronics would shut down. Yeah, nuclear weapons, lasers, gun, everything just shuts down. And you go to fire your gun, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Now what?
Well, I mean, you fire a gun at God, God could just turn the gun into a flower and then it's done. You're dealing with something that is far beyond our comprehension, far beyond our understanding, and just seems like a bad idea. So don't go pick fights with God, everybody, or a God or any God. Just don't go pick fights.
Any entity like that, you probably shouldn't push their buttons. Don't ask for war with them.
No, yeah. Be careful what you wish for. Yet again, that's the story. The moral of the story here for all of you: be careful what you wish for, because you end up in the Book of Revelation. And that's not good for anyone.
No.
Well, Wizard, that was absolutely fascinating, although terrifying. But
yes.
I will be sure not to pick fights with God or any God. But we do have listener questions, viewer questions. If you're open.
Yeah, let's hear some questions.
Obviously, we've got a couple from some of our regulars. Very excited about this. And I'm going to tell you right now, I guarantee we're going to have more questions on this episode. We do have a very high-level group of numerous Christians and Catholics and Orthodox folks. So please put your comments down below. Ask your questions. We'll answer the best we can. Although on this one, I'm not the expert, obviously. Wizard is the devout Christian, so he is the guy to ask these two. But speaking of questions for Wizard, our friend Jesse Kane 1646 asked a question to you, Wizard, and you did answer this shortly on the channel comments page, but I wanted to dig into this a little bit.
Okay.
So Jesse asks us, you know the point in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind where the car stalls? What would that do to a modern vehicle's EV, or would it destroy the car? And I'm sorry I butchered your question, Jesse. Apologies.
Well, if there's a UAP hovering over a car, like in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I remember seeing that incident where the car just shuts down, the electronics shut down.
Unit 211, 1030, 57.
That car didn't get damaged. It just kind of like the electricity slowly went away. It's no longer operating. It was shut down. And I think the same thing would happen for an EV. The modules and things would just go to sleep. It would be like you turn the power off. And then once the craft leaves, I believe things would come back on. I don't believe it would damage your EV or blow it up or do anything bad. I guarantee you, if there's a UAP hovering above you, it has 1,000,000 times more technology than your EV. So they know what they're doing. They're not going to blow you up. And then when they leave, it would come back on again. That's what I think would happen.
Unless it's a Tesla, then it might go on fire, But
thinking of that, Tommy, I wonder if there's a UAP above you before the Tesla shuts down. Will the camera show entities on it?
Well, that's a good question. So that's what I was going to get into. So a lot of the research I've done into the UAP, UFO phenomenon, abductions, all that, there is always a aspect where the electronics and the mechanics fail simultaneously as a craft approaches, or as a precursor to abduction or close encounters. Now, the other thing that happens in paranormal research is we find that, like, we use lithium-ion batteries for all our cameras and a lot of our gear. Those will completely drain out and tap out at times. So unfortunately, if you are in a Tesla or in another electric vehicle, there still is that potential where the batteries will completely drain out. And as you know, and as we found out on Car Trek, we had a Tesla on Car Trek that we tried to do a road trip. Tyler Hoover was driving, and as the thing said it had 10 to 30% battery left, then it just shut down. Batteries were completely dead.
It says unable to drive, battery charge level too low at 35 miles. Come on.
What's the level of current nervousness, Tyler?
The car just shut off. Like
it's not coming back on.
I would say there is a good chance that in an EV, if you encounter a UFO or some sort of paranormal phenomenon, you may get stuck because it taps the batteries out, because we know this happens during certain events. But, like Wizard said, maybe the camera will catch something beforehand, and if it's got just enough juice left to keep that memory, you might have some interesting evidence on your hands.
I think that if you go by the movie, though, once the craft leaves, their battery isn't drained. They're able to start it back up and keep driving. So,
yeah, it doesn't.
Based on the movie, it wouldn't do anything since they're using the movie. But Tommy's right. If these entities are similar to the paranormal world, it could drain the batteries. That's possible.
Yeah, but maybe again they'll be nice enough to leave enough juice for you.
Maybe. Hopefully so.
Although, good luck finding a supercharger.
You could shout at the craft, I had 500 miles range, you moron. Now I have 100.
Well, maybe if you're really nice to them while they're probing you, they can at least juice it up a little more. Maybe put a supercharger in there for you.
Maybe the opposite would happen. Maybe you have a full capacity when they leave. They were nice. Hey, they charged you up. They did a Tesla multi-supercharger.
Well, another question we have is from our regular Gemalot. So, Wizard, if this unidentified approaching probe, 3i Atlas, turns out to be an actual spacecraft that parks in our orbit with beings on board, do you think it would challenge the world's religions, especially Christianity, by causing believers to question or lose their faith? If you were a religious leader, how would you guide your congregation through the dilemma?
I think that there's multiple different congregations or different denominations, churches. We're going to see, if this happens, we're going to see multiple responses. Some churches will say it's God has come back in this ship and he's going to take his believers. The rapture's happening. You're going to have some churches say that it's demonic. It's really going to be down to interpretation. Even the Bible itself, it's interpreted in different ways. And in the movie Contact, we have Jodie Foster in that movie, and throughout the movie, is religious things happening where people say, the end is near, we're all going to die, and all. You're going to see things like that happen. And the question is, what would I do if I was a pastor of a church? I probably would say, if these beings don't present as being from heaven or God himself or something like that, we're going to have to open our mind to the idea that God has created more than just what's on earth. And maybe these beings are one of his creations as well. We shouldn't shoot them or do something crazy. They're here to corroborate with us, to speak with us, to communicate. We don't know what their intentions are going to be if it is a craft. But I wouldn't jump to conclusions and say it's demonic or it's God himself or the end is near. Because if it's truly just beings from another planet, then it's going to be none of those. And will it change the face of Christianity? Yes, it would. Because then the questions would be asked to those beings, who do you serve? Or what is your story? What is, it could definitely change things.
Yeah, it'd be a whole new world for a lot of people in general. Mm-hmm. But I think anyone with a religious belief, some religions incorporate these things into their belief system. And you hear about like certain practices in Hinduism where they think like UFOs basically brought some of their deities, and there's some interaction there. And obviously like the star people from Native American traditions, people from the stars coming down. It's going to be tough for some people to swallow the pill, but I love your idea of just coming at it from a compassionate standpoint of just having an open mind, not putting judgment, let things unfold, stay calm. And I think if anything, it should really galvanize people's beliefs, because if you believe in God and you believe God created us, then what's to stop God from creating other things like wizards numerous times, right? So I think the open mind and the compassion are two of the biggest things that we have as assets as humans. And it's never good to make decisions based on fear, no matter what. Like fight or flight is one thing. Yeah, do I run from the bear? Do I stand still and try to fight a bear? No, that's a bad idea. But when it comes to almost every other interaction, allowing fear to rule our decision-making tends to put us in a deficit. So.
Right. And kind of a verse in the Bible, it talks about in the paranormal realm, when you come across spirits that are not identifying themselves, or you don't know who are you dealing with, it says in the Bible to try the spirits. It says to ask them, whom do you serve? Why are you here? What are your intentions? What is your name? Things of that nature. I think that that could also apply to a being from another planet that's on this three-eye atlas. If it's a ship, you could ascertain those things. Who do you serve? Where do you come from? What is your name? And if they're not here to make war or destroy, maybe it's just another one of God's creations.
Yeah. It could still be one of God's creations, even if it wants to destroy you.
It could, you're right.
But at the end of the day, you know, I just have to have faith that there's other things out there that are emotionally stable and would rather have a positive interaction than a negative one.
Right.
And sometimes I'm proven wrong just looking at humanity, but sometimes I'm proven right. So I always try to stay optimistic in things because the world's a much better place when you look on the brighter side than if you dwell on the negative. Because if you dwell on the negative, you might end up being one of those people shaking your fist at God and blaspheming at the end of times when you really should be asking forgiveness.
But if the ship shows up and this ends up being one of the angels is starting to pour vials out and things start happening like I just mentioned in those verses, then I would be led to believe the end is near. Here we go.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the end of the world thing, it gets thrown around a lot. And obviously there's been predictions over decades, over centuries of this happening. And I'm sure people that were involved when the Bible was written thought that it was going to come a lot sooner than it has.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's not any of us that know. Jesus didn't even know.
No.
God's the only one who knows. So
we're
just here for the ride. Let's just ride this rock and have a good time while we're here.
That sounds good to me. Keep the peace. Keep the commentary going. We can all discuss it and work things out. We're not here to push any agenda on anyone's life. You're going to see videos we talk about like heroes with a Christian religion type thing. Then we might have a video about cryptids and about aliens and about spirits and all kinds of different things. So we're here just to talk about all these things. We're not here to push anything down anyone's throat, guys.
No. And again, you look at Wizard and I and him as a Christian, me as an occultist, my occult views, while I still have God, a single big God, as my mainstay, there's a lot of other nuances that really don't fit with Wizard's belief system, but that's okay because at the end of the day, we both have compassion for one another. We're friends and we realize we can challenge each other respectfully, have these conversations, and still walk away firm in our own beliefs. And so none of us are trying to push anything on you. So just know, like, we're not going to try to convert you. You believe what you believe, and we respect the heck out of that. And we want you to keep believing what you believe, because if it brings you joy and brings you peace, you're a better person for it.
One of the best things that can happen is when there's something presented to you, you don't understand, you don't get it, or it maybe challenges your beliefs. Don't go to calling names and hurling insults.
Yeah.
That's not the way.
Exactly.
Say, hey, I peaceably disagree with you. Hope you have a nice day. Move on. Do your own thing. You don't need to fight. You don't need to call names. We don't need to curse each other out.
No.
Just respect the other person's beliefs and move on, I guess.
Yeah. And we see a lot of that in the comments. Like our diehard fans, which, by the way, thank you. And we feel so blessed and thankful for you. But our diehard fans will often do that. They'll have very good discussions in the comments without being offensive. There's still going to be people that take it there, but you don't have to be where that person's at. You can rise above where they're at and just simply not comment, or do like Wizard does often, where he leaves positive kind of funny comments to rebuke some of that. And I think that's comedy's always good. I love it.
Yeah, kind of it takes the edge off, I guess, or it disarms them. That's what it does. It disarms them. So I hope you guys enjoyed the crazy Bible story I just shared. Let us know in the comments what you think about the death and destruction and the craziness and the
birds.
I think it's wild too. It shocked me just as much as it shocks you. So
yeah, the sheer amount of bird eating carrion vastly outnumbers a lot of other things that are in the Bible that probably should have had more focus.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, a lot of like the eating dead things in the Bible.
Yeah.
Who would have thought? But please, like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. We're fastly approaching 10,000 subscribers. We want to get there, but we can't do that if you don't share the video. So thank you all for watching. Yeah, we're blessed. We're going to keep bringing more videos to you, and we've got some really crazy, weird, completely off the wall ones in the future that we wanted to ease you into the crazy, but now we're hitting that point where we're going to ramp it up.
Yes. Thanks, guys, for watching. More craziness is coming down the pipe. You can definitely bet on that.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Jazzy. seconds.